And we're live. Welcome to the public conversation that Surya Johnson and I are having on multiple channels. Hello, YouTube. Hello, LinkedIn, Instagram. Hi, Facebook. How you doing? So interestingly enough, we've been having a conversation for like a half hour maybe. And now we're going to share part of it with you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you. Sorry, not sorry. I'm Rose Kaz. We are kicking off the third season, excuse me, of LBI Digital's podcast, Money, Segg, and Pahlotics. And that is starting with this clever conversation with Surya Johnson. Surya is the CEO of Radiant Health Institute. She and I are going to be discussing money today, of the MSP that I love to speak about on this podcast consistently, and how our subconscious beliefs, patterns of survival, and how our nervous system being regulated or dysregulated really impact our ability to receive and sustain wealth. Notably, we're talking about, yes, wealth like in your bank account, like what's your balance, where are your assets, do you have them, can you get them, have you paid rent? Yes, but we're also talking about what I'm calling the new gold standard, our humanity, specifically our shared humanity, our relationships, the quality of our relationships, the toxicity of our relationships, and how we're actually able to navigate the world from a grounded space. Right. And so, Surya, thanks for joining for the earlier part of the conversation. We were really getting into it. I know your role as the CEO of Radiant Health, you're all about disrupting and really creating space as a coach in more of a holistic, like a comprehensive way. I know you come from this really bold space, no BS. We met, after all, through Burhanda Williams. A number of projects that Burhanda does. I met her through the Power of Girlhood. Now she's doing the Lead Her and a lot of initiatives really to help strengthen already amazing women in the world and our leadership skills. And so grateful to have you here, Surya. Grateful to have your consent to stream on the airs of the internet so that we can keep having these conversations. And to kind of pick up where we were just talking a little bit. I said, Surya, you're kind of like a bouncer for humanity, right? Like you're showing up, you've done the work for yourself. You got off the hamster wheel of burnout because you were like, no more. I'm not playing that life. I don't want to do that. And so passing the mic back your way, I'm really curious about the technique of sort of staying grounded in oneself, working on that like strong base for one for one own individual, so that each of us can individually show up for the others, right? Yeah. Like one of your go-to everyday, maybe top two, one if you don't mind two, but like tools that you're like, hold on, like I just checked the news again. I accidentally did a little doom scroll, because there's no shortage of triggers out there. And the goal is that this conversation is not a trigger, but instead like some balm for all of those that might be just making people or encouraging people to feel spun around. We want to encourage people to like ground and be okay, even if it feels like everything is not okay.
Yeah. So first things first, I would definitely say first, thank you for that introduction. And I'm very excited and happy to be here with you as well. The first thing that I would say is my go-to is something that is intangible, and it is boundaries. I was not taught this as a young woman, but it is super powerful in terms of staying grounded. And I see it in multiple different realms. I don't just see boundaries as telling other people no. I see boundaries as also, similarly to what you said, saying no to doom scrolling, saying no to the news. I rarely watch the news because I am a psychic feeler. There are things that I pick up on without me needing to even be near something, much less hearing it or seeing it or taking it in with my five senses. And so in putting up very heavy boundaries, I would say that that helps to keep me grounded. That also looks like sometimes what may even make me feel like a bad mom in a moment. Like there are times where I have to turn my own children away. Like I don't have capacity for this emotionally, because I know when someone comes to me with something emotional, my immediate reaction is how do I fix it, especially if it's someone that I love and care about. It's how do I fix it? And then that can either become a distraction or it can become a codependent relationship. And so I ensure that even my children, right? Not that we're going to take this thing away and I'm not going to be your emotional support and not provide you with a secondary one. But it looks like saying no and then saying, how can I ensure that that support is coming from somewhere else? So even in me not having the capacity to do it for you, it's not that it's missing, right? So it looks like all of my children being in therapy, like something I did not have as a young girl and wish that I did, because it's so important to have that support system. So I would definitely say the first thing is boundaries. The second thing in terms of grounding, I would say, is movement. I think this world teaches us to do a lot, but not in the doing that's actually going to support us on a health and wellness level. And so just moving, your body can move certain energies, certain experiences, certain emotions out of your field. Water, just the basic foundational things that a lot of us forget to do is super important. Grounding for me is sleeping sometimes. If there is something coming up where I'm feeling overwhelmed or my mind is running, go sleep. Just those foundational things that, as I said, the world tells you not to do, because if you do it, you're not going to accomplish this level of success, or this, you're not going to get the relationship, or you're not going to get the this if you are doing these things. Testing all of that. And I have found that I sleep the most in my life that I have right now. And this is the most expansive I have been in business. So is it
Mhm.
true that in me working hard, that equals me making more and having more business success? It hasn't been proven true when I did the counter of what I was told. So I test everything. I test
Mhm.
everything, and I think that that helps to ground me in my true identity and getting my own set of analytics, not just based off of hearsay or what I was told or patterned into, but seeing that, hey, I did this a completely different way and we didn't die. The
Mhm.
world is not on fire. Like everything is still moving how it's supposed to, and it's moving even better the more that I prioritize these things. And so those would be my foundational things for grounding myself, grounding yourself, or you, like grounding into self is so important. And I think that those are my top go-tos. Boundaries, say no to some things. Say no, you don't got to say yes to everything. Turn
Right?
be off, turn off social. If social is making you feel like you have to be something else, do something else, turn it off. Say no to it, right? That helps you to ground back into, who am I beyond social media? Who am I beyond the news? Who am I beyond this job? Say no to a few things. Who am I beyond the relationship? Who am I beyond this career path? Right? I think one of the major things that my sabbatical taught me is that I had lost so many things. I had nothing to anchor my identity to.
Mm.
I had nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, I feel like, yes, boundaries, because they, I mean, they were busy teaching me like keyboard skills. I was like, maybe with the side of boundaries, like, yes, checkbook balance. Okay, boundaries? No, no, nobody. I mean, right? They weren't taught them, right? Our people. This is a new concept. God bless the generations after us that are like, no, I don't do that. And I'm learning so much, right? Like the mentor and the mentee. The journey as a student never ends. But I also really appreciate, Surya, you're saying challenge challenge the expectation. Like, is it a genuine expectation that I need to hold for myself, right?
Mhm.
Like, my client expecting this from me. Great, we created the expectation. Am I stressing out on something like that I didn't do, or that they don't want me to, like, what's the container of the expectation? The
Yeah,
larger expectations of parenthood, of leadership, of working, of being a human,
yeah,
right? I heard you say this in the first part of our conversation, is we didn't choose where we were born or how the patterns were given to us as, showing up onto this planet, right?
yeah.
But what we do have choice in is how we are right now. And I think, I often try to challenge even the like, just do this. And granted, I did ask you the question, what are the things, right? But I'm hearing, right, other people in my family that would be like, well, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that. It's like, well, okay, if we've gotten through the top two suggestions that you can't do, then the third one is like, well, why is that you can't do that, right? What is the role that you must play that doesn't allow yourself
Mm,
to create a boundary, or doesn't allow yourself to say like, I don't want to do that, or
yeah,
to create space for oneself, right? And
yeah,
that's a real that will shaketh the foundation when we all really start asking that
yeah,
to
yeah.
ourselves,
This
right?
is why people don't like coaching. It forces you to go into spaces that you have hidden from for years, right? Because, yeah, the next question after that, when you tell me 2 times that you can't do that, where did you learn that you can't do that? Where
Right.
did you learn that?
Right. And who said, and like, is that real, or is that just like the perceived realness? And I know we're talking about coaching around like business and showing up. And we talked a little bit earlier about like, the concentric circles, the intersectional space about like being in therapy and having a business coach or an energetic coach or a money coach or a person who's basically an accountability partner for your trajectory, and the importance of having hopefully therapy happening concurrently, because there's so much heavy lifting. And if someone doesn't want to do it, then it's just like psh, swipe left, right? Like, this is a conversation not for like, hi, I do the least in the world, right? This is a conversation for those of us who already do a lot, but maybe the between the A and the B is like the hope to inspire folks to do a little bit more on owning themselves, like
Yeah,
owning their own power.
yeah,
Because in this moment, I know we're talking about energetics of money and how like owning one's own energetics can potentially fill up their own bank account and relationships and resources. But we're also like speaking to the elephant in the room. We're in a space where the world, particular organized organized leadership, is saying, well, no, but you can't have that, even if you have owned your worth, right?
mm,
And my call to action here is like, that is not the story I am going to be playing by. I'm not going to believe that narrative. I've done my own work to value myself outside of the patterns that my family gave me, or my, wherever I picked up, to say like, no, 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 my work matters, her work matters, his work matters, their work matters. The energetics of like pushing forward healthy and sustainable work, whether it's like as an entrepreneur out here building new systems, as an entrepreneur working for a business that is also doing that, as an individual like sole proprietor, or a collaboration, right? Like showing up to own that value so that we can share it with others, hopefully inspires people to do the same, from the like macro to the micro,
yeah.
macro to the, anyways, you know what I'm saying. Zoom out, zoom in. I'm a little dyslexic. As we wrap up, I just would love to know a little bit more about the space that you're building. We talked in the first part of the conversation about like the intentionality of creating safe place so that we can have deeper conversations, have these connective points in really resilience creating tempos. Can you share a little bit more about that and how that might look?
Absolutely. So, what I'm curating right now at Radiant is a space that is conducive to the people that have been on the outskirts for a very long time. There were so many institutions that I just didn't fit into, and it wasn't for lack of knowledge, it wasn't for lack of emotional intelligence, it wasn't for any of that. It was that their rules did not feel like truth to me, and therefore because I would lead as opposed to follow, because I was curious over unconscious and just following, it would always rub certain spaces the wrong way, because it's how dare you question
Mhm.
us, we are the authority. And so what I wanted to create was a space that helps others to tap into their own inner authority and not be judged for it, right? Because that is what I have lived my whole life. I didn't get a diagnosis of ADHD until this year, when I turned 33, well, last year, but at the end of the year. And it it was such a game changer when I'm just like, oh my God, everything makes so much sense right now as to why I work the way that I do, why sometimes it's hard to feed myself, why sometimes I don't feel hunger pains like everyone else, why I am so multifaceted, and why I can really become an expert in something in a very short amount of time, because when I'm in something, I'm fully in,
Mm.
right? It allowed me to understand self. And when you understand self, you cannot be a sheep any longer, because that gives you a
Mhm.
sense of authority.
Right
And so
there.
the space that I'm curating is to allow people to honor their true identities through curiosity, through those personal development moments, through being in a community with other people that have wisdom around who they are, so that they can even see that mirrored back to themselves and say, wow, okay, I can be all of who I am. My bigness isn't a problem here, right? My bigness was always a problem, whether it was the school system and me doing my humanitarian efforts, or I was so politically correct. If there was any injustice, I was the one getting a clipboard and getting signatures. No, they hated me. They hated right? Whether it was in church and hearing certain things from the Bible and saying, "Hey, well, that's not the what I got from it. Like this is what I got from it," and sharing my truth around it, right? They didn't like that I pushed back. And so I think that a beautiful aspect of what I'm creating is I'm creating a space where when others come, they can push back and it not be seen as disrespectful or wrong or intimidating, or if I don't have an answer for you, then I feel dumb. So I'm just going to act like I don't have to answer you.
Mhm.
Creating a space where it counters all of that so that we can birth what I believe will be the new generation of leadership, the new generation of parents, the new generation of workers, entrepreneurs, just people that are doing good, conscious work in the world and that aren't afraid to take up space and that
Mhm.
aren't afraid to be their biggest, most weirdest, wonkiest, whatever words we want to put there. Their most unique selves,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like I have been on that journey and I'm just a little bit ahead. And when you are the blueprint of something, I believe that you are supposed to take that blueprint and create something for other people that did not have that space, right? We're creating a new space where this just wasn't available. It wasn't available. It's barely available in our school systems. It looks very institutionalized still. And it's just like you're dealing with people that aren't supposed to be in cages, yet this still feels like a cage. And so that is the premise behind what we are building at Radiant. It is to blow the lids off of these spaces that have tried to cage our identities and have tried to keep ancient wisdom and the wisdom around how to be and have inner authority versus being a sheep. We're trying to bring all of that knowledge and wisdom and consciousness into the space so that we can create a new world, create new institutions, create new programs and educational systems, because obviously those things are not where or what they need to be. Create new definitions of wealth, um,
Mhm.
shift the wealth platform right now, because it's very one-sided right now and we know why,
Mhm.
right? But when we have people that have that inner authority and have good hearts, have good souls, want to do good work in the world, they should have wealth, because we know that who they are will not be changed or skewed by a monetary figure, because we know that's not even why they do what they do, right? It's deeper than that. And so that's the space that we're creating at Radiant.
That's amazing. I'm again, every time I dig deeper into working with Brenda Williams, I find another incredible person doing incredible work. I'm super glad to have had this conversation with you, Surya. I
Yeah.
also just want to say thanks for continuing to show up. In the first part of our conversation, I was like, well, tell us why you didn't quit, why you haven't quit. And she was like, if I may. You're like, no, I have.
I have several times.
Right.
Several times I said, I'm done here. You guys
Yeah.
aren't going to see me again. I will just live my life in a corner of the world. Absolutely. Definitely quit before.
Same.
But I'm here.
Same. And we're back. And we're back. And we're better than ever. And we're recharged. And we moisturize. And we've slept. And we get our steps in. And we take care of ourselves so that we can come out and collectively change the world, right? And I remember in the formative days, basically during lockdown, initially in COVID times, and it sounded like very similarly, you, Surya, were having experiences of like, hold on, wait a minute. What is my life, right? What are we doing? And my hope is that anybody who right now is like, I'm still not really clear what I'm doing, or like, what the hell is, because we're still healing from that moment 5 years ago, right? It was last March, the last time we had 500 days in March, like this March, was March 2020. And that was only 5 years ago, right? And so we are all still collectively healing from that. And business has not gone back to usual. Hello. It's not going back to usual. It is not, we don't go backwards in time. Now, quantum leaps aside, we are working collectively here on this conversation. I know with what Brahenda is doing. I know with what a bunch of women in Chicago, in Miami, in North Carolina, Asheville, California, San Diego, like up and down across the nation, there are people who are doing the good work to build better systems and to build business for good. And that's sort of my I guess my call to action is like, if folks are already activated around building better, I want to talk to you. Hopefully, Surya, you want to talk to them, right? We're building bigger networks of the good work, right? And for all of the doom scrolling and the dumpster fire isms, like, it's super important to recognize and to be aware of what is happening, especially as it's not just like over there or, oh, it's not going to affect me kind of jargon. Like, it's everywhere. And it is important for us to notice that, and also to spend energy on actually creating and collaborating the systems that will carry us through into the next iterations. And from my standpoint of building business for good, I'm leaning into tech solutions, right? And very often the tech that has been built for eons, by the way, a hammer was once considered technology, okay? Same as a nail file, right? But those systems have not included anybody who looks like this, anyone who's on this call, right? And there's a problem. And technology is not going anywhere. And so I feel very excited and honored, by the way, to speak with leaders like Surya, because that kind of information informs even more of the integral systems that I'm building that are definitely more nerd vibes and techie, right? But are also completely and totally tied in, because there's no one part of this whole sphere of business and humanity and our access and our well-being and our overall quality of life that are not connected.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was sort of a long way to land the plane based on your kind summary of your work and for being here. We flashed it once before. We'll pull it one more time through Surya's website, so you can check out more of the work there. And as we push the end stream button, any last closing thoughts, Surya?
No. I want people to know the power of what is inside of them, and just to think about, if certain information isn't powerful, why are they trying to hide it from us? That's all.
That's the gold right there.
That's it. If it's not powerful, if it's super taboo, if it's something that's so scary and something that has been demonized so much, my question is, if we have authority and believe what we say that we believe, what is so important about hiding that information or making it seem so scary that we don't want people to go into those realms? Because I just think back to things like, a parent saying, don't go in my room, or don't go in that specific drawer. It was never anything scary in there. It was just wisdom that you weren't yet ready for.
I'm willing to bet it somehow had to do with either money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that's all that I want to challenge people to do is to use that noggin and to just think maybe there is a reason why this is being hidden from me. And maybe that is the reason why I should run towards it as opposed to walking, right? Maybe that's the reason why coaching is only done on such a high executive level. Maybe there's so much power in it that it wants to be kept to a certain community, a certain creed, a certain type of person. So just start to question everything. And when you can do that, I think that's where the power comes in, is when we get curious and just ask if this is not as big of a deal as it is, if this is a scam, if this is whatever, why are they hiding it? Why is it only made for certain people? Why does it only work for certain communities? That's what my mind does. It questions things. And it has been the reason why I have gotten to where I am in this life, is because I choose not to just trust things at face value, but to question everything. And so I would leave the audience with that.
Solid mic drop. Surya Johnson, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the work you're doing. Everybody who's checking in on the socials, please do the thing where you do the liking, you do the following, not in the creepy way, right? You share this conversation. We'll have the full edit available for our inner circle folks that we are connected through Burhanda and Surya's communities, as well as mine, with LBI Digital and Building this Business for Good. If you have any questions, if you're curious, if you want to show up a little more vulnerable and start building better, you got some resources here. If you're curious what building better looks like, sounds like, play this again, share it with your friends, sit down and have a conversation. The more you know, the more you grow. So Surya, once again, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Be well, stay safe.
Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Likewise.
All right.